Hi everybody, I'm going to be talking about Unit 1. So let me share my screen and we'll begin. All right, so as I said in our introductory video, every assignment in this class is part of a unit. So there's 3 units and then there's a final exam. So our first unit is going to be 2 weeks long. So it's week 1 and 2. And the goal of this unit is you're going to make a podcast. So you're going to introduce yourself to our class through writing a personal essay and recording as a podcast. So podcasts are really popular now, and they're a really good way to sort of reach broad audiences. So the goal of this essay is to introduce yourself to the class and gain experience with communicating your personal thoughts, beliefs, feelings to a wider public audience. All of us know how we feel about things. We know who we are, we know what we believe, we know what we think is right, we know what we think is wrong, but we have to be able to take that and think about making it so that it makes sense for a wider audience. This is something you do in college, something you'll do in the workplace. You'll have to think about, okay, how can I convey what I think to people who don't know me as well? And that's sort of the goal here. So in this unit, you're going to complete the recorded podcast. You're going to write 500 to 750 word rationale, and you're going to participate in the weekly discussion threads. So like I said, all of the work you do during that unit is part of that unit, and you turn it all in together. So everything's completed in units, and you have to turn all of these in to get a passing grade. So this unit has 3 parts. Most of them have 3 parts. I think one has 4. So part 1 is the podcast. So that's the actual, assignment part of this. So for this assignment, you're going to write a personal essay and record yourself reading it as a way to introduce yourself to the class. You do not have to turn in a written copy. I only need the podcast. So I want you to record yourself reading the essay. The reason I'm not requiring the written essay is because different things go into a written essay versus recorded. Recorded is a little bit different how you reach your audience. It may not make as much sense or read the same way as it's spoken. We don't talk like we write, we talk very differently, and I want you to sort of take that into account here. Think about the difference between written and spoken communication. For example, I might not speak in complete sentences all the time, and you're not going to notice, and you're going to understand me perfectly. That's sort of the goal here. So I want you to sort of think about what needs to be said and what's important. But I do want you to write it out first. It's going to help you a lot. So your recorded essay needs to be between 3 to 4 minutes long, and that's about 400 to 650 words on paper. So when you're writing it out, aim for that. It's not going to be less than 400, but if you speak really quickly, it might be a little bit longer. So if you talk like I do, it might be closer to 800 words. Just depends on how quickly you talk. In your essay, I want you to share a story or something personal about yourself to introduce yourself to the class. That can be as serious, funny, deep, whatever you want it to be. Don't share things you're not comfortable with. And then I want you to practice conveying information about yourself to a public audience. So like I said, don't share things that make you uncomfortable. Some of you might be really good and comfortable talking about really deep, personal, interesting things, stories that have happened to you, lessons you've learned. Others of you might be like, I really like ice cream. That's okay. It's whatever you want to share. That's what I want you to focus on. But I want you to think about something that means something to you and talk about it. And we will have examples. So although this personal essay, please remember, share things that make you comfortable. So have a pet dog, talk about that. Again, ice cream. Apparently I really like ice cream. That would be something that would be good to share. If you're stuck and you have no idea what to write about, I say start with your college career. Why did you come to college? Why William Penn? What do you hope to do after college? All good things to talk about. So once you've written your essay, you will record it in podcast form. There are many ways to do this, and our course site will have some information. I'll talk about that at the end. One of the easiest ways is to use the voice memo or voice recorder on your smartphone. You probably can use Zoom. There's a lot of different options, whatever works best for you. For recording your podcast, I want you to think about reaching your audience with your voice. So nobody wants you just to read something to them. So think about like an audio book, if you listen to those, or a podcast, that'd be a good example too. People aren't just like holding a piece of paper in front of their face and just like reading it in monotone. They're trying to give it variety, vocal variety, trying to make it interesting, try to connect you. That's what I want you to focus on. So don't read it monotone. And don't read it too quickly. So think about how to engage your audience using just your voice. And we'll talk more about that a little bit next week, but I want you to really think about how to reach the audience with only your voice. You don't have anything else. So think about how to do that. A successful podcast introduces yourself to class with an interesting and meaningful story. It uses your voice to connect with the audience, and it meets the time requirements of 3 to 4 minutes. So for this part of Unit 1, all you do is you turn in that voice recording of the 3 to 4 minute essay. So you don't have to do the written copy. Part 2 is the rationale. So you do a rationale for every unit. That's where you tell me what you've learned and you sort of explain your rhetorical choices and everything that you did. So you're going to write a 500 to 750 word essay. See, I told you to write something, just not that. You don't have to turn in the other part of the essay. So 500 to 750 word essay explaining how you wrote and recorded your essay. I want you to tell me how you chose your topic and how you recorded it to connect with your audience. This is where you show me what you've learned. Let's say your podcast is okay, but then I read your rationale and it's like, oh, you put a lot of thought and effort in this. You really understand communication. Your grade's going to be higher. Let's say you have a really good podcast, but your rationale doesn't really explain anything. Your grade will be lower. So this is where you sort of tell me, here's what I've learned and here's how I've applied it. So tell me what you learned from your textbook. Tell me what you learned from our lectures. Tell me about your forum discussion posts. Whatever helped you, tell me. So here's sort of an example of the sort of tone I want from rationale. I don't want it to be a summary. Remember, I will listen to your podcast, then read your rationale, so I know what it's about already. So example rationale might look like this. So let's say that I wrote my podcast about my dog Monty. He's a pug. Let's say I'd say, I decided to write about my dog Monty. Even though he's a dog, he's really, really important to me. I love him because of X, Y, and Z. When recording my essay, I decided to use humor to reach my audience. As our textbook says on page 37, first impressions are really important. Since I can't use nonverbal communication to reach my audience, I decided that I need a really strong opening line for my essay. By using humor to reach my audience, my goal is to create a positive first impression so that my audience listens to the rest of my podcast. Although I wanted my voice to be the star of the podcast, I incorporated some of my dog's barking and light music into the background to help convey the lighthearted tone of the essay. So you're going to tell me things like tone, what's important, cite your textbook. You don't have to use like an APA citation. I know what your textbook is. We're all reading the same textbook. So you can just say, on page whatever, or our textbook says, and put the page number. That's totally fine. But I want you to tell me what you have learned from each of our chapters. So a good rationale says, I learned about this and I used it in my rationale. So you're not just, or my podcast. So you're not just getting on your podcast, reading a story. You're going to write and think about your story and deliver your story based on what you've learned about communication. So a good rationale tells you what you've learned and how you applied it. A successful rationale cites the textbook and our forum discussions throughout the rationale, aim for 3 to 5 citations, and really shows me what you've learned. So for this part of the unit, you will submit one 500 to 750 word typed double-space essay. So podcast, 500 to 750 word rationale, that's parts 1 and 2. Now, there's 3 parts of this unit. I think most of our units have 3. I think Unit 2 might have 4 parts. We'll get there when we get to it. But 3 parts. So the last part is the forum discussions. So each week you have forums. And you have to respond to those forums each week. That's your attendance for that week. And when you do those forums, I count it as part of this grade. So when I said like everything you do during the unit, that's sort of your grade. So each week you'll be asked to participate in the forum discussions. There'll be 2 to 3 each week. This week there's 2. I think 2 is more usual. Sometimes there'll be 3. You must participate in all the forum posts. And the discussion post, you'll need to answer the prompts in 300 to 400 words. You'll also need to respond to 2 of your classmates in each forum. If you respond to each forum, answer the questions thoroughly, and respond to 2 classmates in the forum, you can get an A. If you do not respond to one of the forums, you will receive a one letter grade off your grade. So for this Unit 1, there are 2 weeks. So there'll be 2 discussion threads each week. So there'll be 4. So if you answer all 4, A. If you answer 3, B. If you fail to respond to 2 of the forums, you'll fail the entire unit. So you have to do this. If you do not respond to the correct number of classmates, you'll receive 1 letter off your letter grade. So what I want you to do is go in there by Sunday of each week, write your response, and then respond to 2 classmates. Well, let's say that you write and no one else is in there. Just, sometime in the next week, go back and respond to your classmates. And if you don't respond to any classmates, it's 2 letter grades off your unit. So take these seriously. This is sort of making up for class discussion. And I try to make them interesting. Some weeks are going to be things like, tell me what you learned from this chapter. Other weeks, I'll give you some scenarios. We'll play around with it. It'll be fun. So for this part of the unit, you'll need to respond to all forum discussions and comment on 2 classmates per forum. So pretty simple. So turning in Unit 1, you'll turn in your podcast and rationale to Dropbox. And if you have trouble uploading your podcast, email me. You can always put a link to it. So you could like make a Word document with your rationale and say, okay, the podcast is here with the link, whatever. Just make sure that I get it. And that'll be due on, let's see what day that's due on. That will be due on June 28th. So that is a Sunday. Everything's due on Sunday. So that'll be not this Sunday, but next Sunday. So that is Unit 2. So, or Unit 1, sorry. You'll turn those in, and then for the discussion threads, I go back and check for you, so you don't have to do anything when you turn in Unit 1 as long as you are participating on those. So if you go to week 1, you will see, let me share my screen with you guys real quick. Let's see, stop share, hold on. Still working with Zoom. All right, so if you look at our Moodle class this week, you'll see, so this is week 1 right here. So the lectures, like this one will be posted up here, due this week, readings. There's a place right here called Ask Dr. Allen Wright. If you have questions, feel free to email me, talk to me in Zoom. If you have questions you think other people might be really interested in or something you want me to talk about during our weekly Zoom sessions, go ahead and ask them here, and I will record them and talk about those things. So there's the assignment sheet. There are 2 discussion threads, and you can see week 1 resources. There's a podcast guide and some podcast examples. So I want you guys to listen to those. So, and then next week, Unit 2, you'll see I'll have the discussion threads up. Yeah, I'm still editing them for you guys. And then Unit 1 turn in, that's where the Dropbox is. So if you have any questions, just let me know. We'll talk about this more during our Zoom sessions, and I'll put those up as well. And I'll also talk more about these in the discussion threads. Of course, send me an email, attend the office hours, or have another conference with me. Just find a way to talk to me if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.